Today on the Road Testament, JF and I discuss what I believe to be a disturbing trend in racing, and JF takes responsibility for doing another video remotely. JF, let's get started.
Yes, sorry, I'm in Alabama this week, and I apologize for not being on location. So you and I watched Formula One together, and we noticed something interesting at the beginning of this year. Infiniti is sponsoring Red Bull. Now, that's a very strange thing to see, considering that the two brands, even though both dealing in automotive, really have nothing to do with each other. It's just like any other sponsorship on the side of a race car. But this time, it's a manufacturer. And I found that quite strange this year, but that's not the first instance of it. For example, we'll just get it right off the bat. Lotus has KV Racing. No real direct, even though they kind of say that there's some direct correlation between the two brands, Lotus really isn't involved with Indy racing. And, you know, it begs the question, is this something we want to see in racing?
Well, I mean, you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, obviously, that I'm against it. I mean, if you look back, 10, 20 years, a lot more teams, certainly I think the majority of teams in many, different series were actually factory run, in-house. And, I mean, I think it's really disappointing to see, manufacturers that don't make the cars sponsoring teams that, may have little or no relationship with the actual cars that the sponsor makes. I mean, you had Mercedes and McLaren had a relationship, obviously, but Ferrari is a
Yeah,
good example, I think, of how it's done right. Ferrari's cars that
yeah,
race are born in the same building that the road cars come from, and
exactly.
that's why people have an affinity for a brand because the DNA is a relationship there. And
Even though the technology trickles down years after it appears in F1, I think one example that kind of is the hybrid of what we're discussing is Braun GP. You know, Braun had very few sponsors on their car when they ran that one year. They got bought out by Mercedes to become Mercedes GP. Uh, Obviously, they're running a Mercedes engine, and there's still a correlation, but it's still kind of the same flair. Mercedes really didn't develop that team. Braun did.
Well, I mean,
Um,
actually, I'm not sure that's a good example because from the day they bought it, they became the Mercedes team. But I think a better example would be like the Infinity relationship you're talking about. Like that race car, there's nothing Infinity about it, and so like why would I feel any loyalty or affinity for that brand at all? Like I feel absolutely nothing. I mean, like Toyota never won a race in Formula One, I don't think, but at least
yeah.
there was a relationship there. I mean, you got to believe that the regeneration technology that Toyota has certainly had they continued, you would have seen a lot more development in the road cars from what they learned in Formula One, and it's
I'm sure that the technology did trickle down in Toyota's in the Toyota example. But look at Infinity, and it was really strange to see Sebastian Vettel speaking about how when he did a press event for Infinity in China before the Chinese GP, and he was speaking about how he was referencing Infinity cars as our cars, as if he was part of the Infinity brand. It's not just a food chain sponsorship on the side of the car. There's a weird correlation between the two, and we have to look at this as a business model. And Alex, you're a business person, and how would you look at this as being? Is this the new way of racing?
I mean, sadly, I think it is. I mean, actually, I respect Mercedes for acquiring Braun because Ross Braun, he knew the rules. He took in 1 year created a team which really knew how to win races. And why shouldn't Mercedes buy them and do everything they can to support them and make something happen there? I think I'm sure in 5 years nobody who supports Mercedes F1 is going to care or remember that they started out not as a Mercedes team. But why do you think Ferrari, there's more red shirts and flags at any F1 race
Yeah.
than there are for any other team? It's because the DNA, the affinity with the brand is there. People who may never be able to afford a Ferrari can go to a race and feel some passion for it. And I don't think
Yeah.
you're ever going to see that for a brand that borrows or pays for presence. It's like when an NF, I guess any professional sports team when none of the players on a baseball or football team are from the hometown in which the team is based. And you have
Yeah.
guys who've never been to New York who play for the Yankees. And I don't feel anything for these guys, nothing at all. It's
Yeah,
it's
and
mercenary. It's mercenary.
it is, but you know what? I think in this society and the way our economy is right now, the world economy, I think it's the best way to approach racing and motorsports. Why should a company be spending these big budgets on research and development when they can just buy out the team that won last year's championship and use it as a normal sponsorship and use the money that they may be spending on print ads and let's face the facts, Alex, you and I, especially with Fastlane and everything we do, we rely on those big advertising budgets to survive, and it says something about how the way our industry is changing based off of the big changes we've seen over the past few years.
Well, what you're saying is absolutely true, but I'm going to bet you something. I'm going to bet you that the return on investment, the ROI for sponsors. If Infiniti sponsors a car, the bottom line, and the car has minimal to no relationship with their road cars, I'm going to predict that the ROI for them, I mean the actual translation of their presence on an F1 car to sales of Infiniti is going to be minimal, and I bet you they're going to never make a dime on the things that, say, Ferrari makes a huge amount of money on. Merchandise and anything branded, there's not going to be any income stream for people who, mercenaries who come in and sponsor race cars, which is why Porsche...
Well, there won't be. I don't think there will be. They won't be making money. The company that sponsors a team won't be making money. I think the way the contracts will work is that the teams, the ones that got bought up for the sponsorship, will make most of the money off that.
Well, I'm going to bet you that whether Ferrari, wins or Mercedes GP win races or not, they are always going to generate more passion and certainly more kind of ancillary, income from all the products that circle and orbit a car that they actually make that comes out of the same building the road cars do. I think it's going to strengthen the passion for brands that do have a relationship with the road cars. And I think
you're looking past selling cars. You're looking to the merchandise. That's where a lot of money is made. Look at Ferrari; they make a lot of money off that.
And that's, I think that if as fewer teams actually build the cars that they have their name on, the teams that do, Ferrari, I got to keep coming back to this, the teams that do are going to have they're going to be kind of much greater gravity of presence and a lot more love and passion from fans. I mean, I'm not sure there's much more I can say about this except how disappointing it is. But companies that come in, even that are small, who lose races, that build their own cars and have a relationship, I'm going to root for these guys whether they win or not.
Yeah, and the one example I have to hand it to is even though it's Team Lotus, I think Tony Fernandez has done a great job of putting together a team that represents exactly what you're speaking of in F1, even though 16th place to them is an accomplishment. Alex, let's leave it at that. I think the question we should ask the audience is, well, is this new business model of racing sponsorship good for racing in general? Is it good for the entertainment value of racing, or is motorsports just becoming a byproduct instead of a byproduct of marketing instead of a tool to further technology in cars? I think that's
I'm going to wrap your question more succinctly. Are there any teams are there any teams that are like the Infiniti sponsorship you're describing that anyone is passionate about? I mean, other than because the driver might be good, I can't think of any. And I'd love to know if anyone else agrees with me. I'd love to know that. In the meantime, I'm heading up to Rally America this weekend to see Wyatt Knox race. Anyone going to be up there near Seattle, come say hi. We'll be up there.
Have fun with that, Alex. I will see you next week in New York.
And go Force India. Take care, Jeff.
Bye.
Ow, we're living in the fast lane, baby.